the sale of two-wheelers. We are now given to understand that two-wheelers scaled up to a new high of more than 100,000 units just in the month of May. This on the back of the fact that the government has cut down on subsidy by the way of FAME scheme. Therefore, many automakers are planning to increase prices. Some of them already have. They have declared, and we discussed that. But essentially, the story here emerging, Karthik, that is, people got their last window, last opportunity, and they went ahead, booked that two-wheeler. Sales there better than expected.
Yeah, Shweta, 2 points to this story. Number one, of course, we've seen record registrations, which is people who may have booked their vehicles in the month of April or even before that, but got delivery only in May, registered their vehicle. So that is 1.57 lakh, if I'm not mistaken. Upwards of 1.5 lakh units. And new vehicle bookings, electric scooters specifically I'm talking about 1.06 lakh. So cumulatively, it's a good number. Now, remember last year, we had upwards of 1 million electric scooters sold. And backing on and counting on FAME subsidies to continue, the industry had a cumulative internal target of about 2.3 million scooters. By that logic, this number is fairly small.
Okay.
Right. So we are still just about, even if we were to maintain this pace, which I doubt, with the price hike on account of a 60,000 rupees subsidy per scooter coming down to about 22,500 rupees per scooter, it's a massive decline in subsidy and a massive increase in prices. So I doubt this trend will continue for subsequent months. And then even if you were to maintain a run rate of about 1 lakh scooters per month, which is the number of new scooters sold in the month of May, and April actually was much lower, just about 67,000 scooters or something, because that is where the confusion on the policy was.
Right, and that's why there's been a 56% jump.
Correct. So yeah, so jump
month
on month. Right. So if you were to even hypothetically say 1 lakh scooters a month to be sold, you're still looking at just about 1.2 million at the end of the financial year, which is about 50% of the 2.3 million target that the industry had set out for itself on the back of the subsidies, continuance of the same subsidized schedule that FAME 2 was meant to offer. So it's definitely a bummer for the industry. They've made massive investments. They have taken PLI and FAME subsidies both. FAME subsidies have been passed on directly to customers. PLI subsidies have been obviously, retained by the companies, and PLI continues, and they are therefore going to be in a better position to continue, manufacturing scooters. But with the prices going up, demand for electric scooters, I believe, is going to come down, because this was a category that could have really picked up. I'm not saying subsidies need to continue forever, absolutely not. But you'd allocated a budget of 10,000 crores. See it through. Let that organic momentum build up, because that is going to build the ecosystem. That will build service stations. That will bring charging stations to your proximity. It'll give a great fillip to the overall e-mobility ecosystem, which now will take even longer to get mobilized.
In which case, I think my question to you, Krishna, is, was there a need to continue with FAME 3, move from FAME 2 to FAME 3, in a sense, continue subsidizing two-wheelers, picking up from where Karthik left off, and that is, you've built an ecosystem, you've built your supply chain, you've started, getting some sort of incentive from the government by the way of PLI, and the auto industry, two-wheeler specifically, electric two-wheeler has now started to flourish. We're not meeting our numbers just as yet, but was it important at this point for the government to continue, or does it make sense to discontinue subsidizing vehicles and build infrastructure instead for two-wheelers?
I really wish I had a pointed answer to that question, but for me, let me just assess the situation. Last year was the breakout year for electric vehicles in India. More than 1 million units were sold just last year. This is the first time more than 1 million electric vehicle units, two-wheelers and cars put together.
Electric scooters. 1 million was electric scooters only. Yeah.
So now you're talking about a situation where it's just about reaching a critical mass of the entire auto market. People who are on the fence about, opting for a electric vehicle, be it a scooter or be it a three-wheeler, they are making the choice. They started making the choice last year. It's a very delicate time. My question is, when the subsidies come down, it automatically means that the electric two-wheeler makers, electric scooter makers are going to pass on that extra cost to the consumers. And prices are going to jump. That's the most logical thing that's going to happen. And either way, the problem with electric vehicles in the country was the fact that they all came at least 30% premium to petrol and diesel vehicles.
Correct.
And now that 30% premium becomes a 50% premium or even a 60% premium. And that throws budgets out of whack. And you're talking about electric scooters. We're talking about middle class people in India buying them. We're not talking about super fancy electric Mercedes, where if the budget goes up by a few lakhs, it wouldn't make a difference. Every 1,000 here makes a difference, especially when you have the quality of petrol and diesel scooters available in the country. You have Honda, you have companies making excellent petrol and diesel scooters. Let's not forget, yes, they are made on non-renewable energy, but they're very good, stylish, within budget, does the thing for you. Look at the utility value of a regular petrol diesel scooter. So that still exists. So this is, if you ask me, if the prices go up by 50%, 30%, they're disastrous for the electric two-wheeler business per se, considering the competition there, because somebody can buy a bike also. They don't need to buy a scooter. They can buy a bike because the category is huge. It's a two-wheeler. Now, somebody is not making a like-for-like replacement of a petrol-diesel scooter with an electric scooter. Somebody who wants to buy a Hero Honda Splendor might want to turn around and buy an electric scooter. So these things, the equilibrium will be badly affected if the prices go up by 30%. And from that perspective, if you were to ask me, I simply don't understand why the subsidies were taken away at this stage. Because let the market explode. Let electric two-wheelers become
I agree with that. Yes.
From the tipping point, we actually tripped back to where we started from.
Right, and I understand government's concern because many of these electric two-wheelers, and from what I know, because I've been covering auto industry for a while now, even as a rookie reporter, I started off covering auto industry, and one of the concerns from the insiders is that this money that came by the way of subsidy was in fact misutilized to a great extent.
But those guys got penalized.
And they got penalized, and the investigation is still on. So there's been a loss of faith and a loss of trust as to where this subsidy is going, and the government is at this point of time is worried whether the money is being utilized towards its necessary cause. And one of the key parameters on which many of these companies failed, and that is with regards to localization. Are these companies who say that they are getting spare parts from the outside and making the scooters here, is that true or not? Government says that there is a misappropriation of funds. All these parts are coming from China, from other, relatively cheaper markets, and being given out here, and you find a tag of Make in India, and you get that subsidy. So essentially, auto players making a lot of money at the expense of the government. That was, of course, the charge. Many, well-known companies like Honda are under investigation, are under radar. So there's been a loss of faith, and that is being read by many people as one of the reasons why the subsidy was cut down.
Simple answer. If there is an activity being undertaken against the laid out norms, penalize those players. You can't have a mass stacking of subsidy across the board for even players who adhere to every norm laid out. Second point, on batteries, there is dependence on China. You can't help it. It doesn't take 1 year to build a battery ecosystem. It doesn't take 1 year to
build a semiconductor
ecosystem.
Absolutely.
You doled out certain incentives. You've got to stick to them for the ecosystem to be built. There are business plans made, capital investments made on the basis of certain expectations and certain continuity in the expectations laid out. After these investments are made, you can't just withdraw it just because some players allegedly flouted on the rules. If there was flouting of rules, penalize them. Get them to pay back 50% of the subsidy, 80% of the subsidy, as the case may be.
All right. So from what it appears,
and if I may add to that, just because there are 274 fraudulent Chinese loan apps does not mean you don't ban all.
I sort of agree with that, but I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the FAME 1 scheme, as it was introduced, I think way back in 2015 or 16, either of the 2 years, do you think it's now run its course, or it should have been extended for a couple of more years? How long do you give to a subsidy scheme before you eventually roll it back? Because there is a need to not keep incentivizing it. There is also a need to build infrastructure. And we've been discussing that, how important it is to have charging stations in the country, how important it is to invest in battery, and how important it is to invest in technology as opposed to keep subsidizing it for the end user.
Agreed. But I think we were a little ahead of the curve in 2016, 2017. You barely had enough electric vehicles in the world. You didn't even have the likes of Tesla selling the kind of numbers that they're selling today. You didn't have the Hondas and the Toyotas of the world. They were still exploring hybrid as a technology back then. Full electric was still a vision, still a dream for some of the biggest automakers in the world. So I think we were a little ahead of our times. Good. So it should have been a phased out, stepped up, well laid out plan. But when FAME 2 was kicked off and the 10,000 crore rupees allocated, only 5,000 crores utilized, at least let that 10,000 crore corpus be spent through way of subsidy. That is a laid out corpus that you had put on paper. You only got industry to use 50% of that, and the rest of the 50% you want to sort of stretch, prolong the subsidy period, keeping the same budget in mind. I'm saying keep the same budget and keep the same terms and conditions. Let it run out. 10,000 crores runs out in 18 months. Great. You have seen that faster adoption of mobility or whatever.
E-mobility.
E-mobility.
Yes. And manufacturing.
Yeah,
of electric
if I were to add to, I don't want to add, I just have a thought as Karthik was talking. I think I get a sneaky feeling that since so much of purchasing is happening from China, if you want to have an electric scooter or an electric car, you're going to buy batteries and so many other things which we don't have the capability to make it in India. We're going to buy it from China mainly because it's cheaper to buy it from China. You know, they have the expertise to do it. I don't think Indian government wants to allocate a huge sum of money, out of which a huge chunk is going to be spent by these electric two-wheeler makers on China. I have a sneaky feeling that that's probably what the government wants to cut down upon. Because here you have government, giving out 10,000 crore rupees, and then the electric two-wheeler industry takes it from them and spends it mostly on China. So I think they want to cut this chain is the guess I have.
All right. So, but all in all, what we know so far is FAME subsidy is going to be cut down. It has been, in fact, cut down from a massive 40% to approximately 15%, which means that your electric two-wheelers are now more expensive. There is going to be a hit in sales figure, which is what the industry is anticipating at this point in time. We will keep coming back on that story. But